The Otter app is basically a texting management system, and that's how we wanted to put it out there. And when I say that, there's a lot of talk about the text and drive issue, and there are a lot of after the incident with my daughter, where she was nearly run down in front of me in late 2009, I did an immediate search and found that there weren't any tools on the market that sort of empowered the end user. There was the beginning of what has continued to be just a mass of lockdown software, sort of Big Brother things, and you see a lot of people wriggling against that and pushing back, especially teens, which are the highest risk driving group. I think that's why only 34 states have passed legislation, is because a lot of people are voting against text and drive legislation because they feel like their civil liberties are being usurped. So when we talk about civil liberties, I feel like we're getting away from the obvious public safety issue that is texting while driving. And when we approached it, we decided to empower the end user with, like I said, a texting management tool. So you can use Otter, which is an acronym for one-touch text response. You can use it at home. You can use it at work. I'm using it right now while I'm talking to you. I know right now my phone is blowing up. And by the way, it's right here next to me. I'm probably getting 5 or 6 texts at the moment and a couple calls, but it's silent. It's sitting right there next to me. I don't see any beeps or buzzes or chimes or anything that takes my focus away from you. And they're getting an auto reply. All my texts are getting an auto reply that are saying I'm on a call with your station, and I'll be done around 11, and I'll get back to you then. So it allows me mentally to focus on you because I don't feel like I'm disconnected from my work network or my social network, which is the key. And all my phone calls that are coming in right now are just going to voicemail. We don't interrupt that. We don't try to take over the smartphone. We just want to give you a tool that allows you to focus and do one thing at a time well. And so that theory goes from home, school for teens, focusing on lectures, business people. I had a friend at a big top 5 bank say that his team's productivity actually increased 40% when he was using Otter because everyone wasn't looking at their BlackBerries. They were focusing on the meeting. And the funny thing is their meeting times took less. I mean, they were scheduling 2 hours and they were done in about an hour. And they really liked it as a productivity tool. So the reason those issues don't directly relate to texting and driving, but we think they do stronger than most people do, in that a person that uses and sees the benefit of a simple app like Otter, if they see the benefit in the office, at the home, they're more likely to use that on the highway. And it has a GPS mode that I just leave that box checked all the time. And when I get in my car, I don't always remember to put on the app to turn it on, so it activates automatically at 10 miles an hour plus. And if I'm too lazy to put my Bluetooth in, which sometimes I am, it'll silence all the ringtones and just let calls go to voicemail, just like right now when I'm sitting here in the office. Cool. So, sometimes I do put my Bluetooth in and it's Bluetooth friendly, and then for we talked about teens briefly, the highest risk drivers, we have a parental control feature that a parent can enter in a session-specific passcode and hand the phone back to their teen, and basically GPS mode is locked on that phone. And we like to think of it as a tool, though, that promotes discussion between parent and teen. And our theory is that if there is even any discussion going on between parent and teen, that teen has already entered into a less risky group because they're at least talking about it. They're at least aware of the danger. And so our ideal scenario, which we've had some use cases come back to this effect, is that a parent will start off with parental control feature, entering in the passcode, but then the teen is using it we had one mom email us and say, thank you, our teen daughter is finally sleeping. And I love that because she's setting a texting auto reply that says, I'm going to get some sleep, and that's all she needs to not feel like she's disconnected from her social network. So that teen sees Otter and is saying, don't worry, Mom, you don't need to use parental control. I've got it. We're trying to infiltrate the texting culture and become part of it, as opposed to putting a big boot on it and saying, we're going to quash this behavior, which to me, teens are texting on average now about 4,000 times a month.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm probably around 400, and I think that's pretty active. 4,000 times a month. So if there's a little hypocrisy here too, because we think we like texting. We use it. Our family uses it sometimes to coordinate social events. I know a softball coach who uses texting a lot to coordinate his team. It's a great fundraising tool. 65% of the money that funneled into Haiti was from texting. So there's these benefits to texting, but then we recognize those as a culture, but then we say, well, stop that as soon as you get in the car. And we're not really providing a tool, we're providing these things that are sort of big brother lockdown, they track the user and so forth, and you're seeing a backlash to that. And what we're after is we're trying to get that person that's driving next to you on the road tonight when you go home to see your family. We're trying to make them more fundamentally safe and sustainably safe. And when I say sustainably, I think you can stop the behavior once or twice with a lockdown software. But to really truly change a driver and make them sustainably a safer driver, I think you need to enter the texting culture and provide them a tool, give them a reason not to text and drive, keep them connected to their social network, but just say, this isn't the time to do it because it's unsafe. And when we change a habit like that, we've got a safe driver, and that relates to all of us on the road tonight as we go home.
How do you get the app? It's
downloadable. It was the first one that had no recurring fees. It's $4.99 on a one-time cost. It's yours for the life of your phone, and it's on Android. We've been on Android since April 2010. Then we followed up that same year with BlackBerry, and it's also available for Symbian smartphones worldwide. So I know you're probably going to ask me, what about iPhone? Because everybody asks me that, and I have an iPhone-toting wife who I know is tempted, by those chimes. That was our first targeted platform, and we found out that their operating system doesn't allow third-party apps like ours to run on their software. So at this moment that you and I are talking, there is, I guess I can be bold and say, I've analyzed all the software that's out there, and I can tell you that there's no legitimate text and drive software for the iPhone right now. And it's because of their OS, their operating system. They have security measures in place that all I really want to do with when you download my app on your Android phone, I want to be able to know when a text is being sent, and I want to be able to access your volume controls. So Otter is pretty passive when you think of how much control I'm asking for, but those measures are not accessible to me on the iPhone yet. And I say yet because we've had several hundred Otter fans email Apple directly on our behalf saying, you got to let this guy in, and we're knocking at the door. I don't think it's anything they're consciously doing to say, we don't believe in text and drive software, we're not going to put it on our phones. I think it's just a security measure that they have in place on their software that their clients like, that is incompatible with what I need to do and what any sort of text and drive software needs to do. So I think it'll happen eventually.
Good, because I'm an iPhone user myself, and I've been looking for some software like this.
You had that look in your eye. I knew you were an iPhone user. That's why I wanted to address that right away. I'll get to you, I promise.
Explain a little bit more about the event in 2009 with your daughter that kind of sparked this idea.
Well, it was Saturday, and I want to portray this really accurately for people because it's very salient to this discussion. We tend to think that these situations happen on big highways where there's other factors or in busy downtown corridors. I was 3 blocks from my home, a residential neighborhood, on a Saturday afternoon. We went up to the local elementary school and we were kicking the ball around, and she and I were walking back home, and I remember she had overalls on because that's what I grabbed. I saw this car coming down an alley, and she was crossing on the sidewalk, and it seemed so obvious that this driver would see us. I was in a yellow reflective blatant, like a bike jacket, and it was pretty, it was a sunny day. There's no hidden car thing. We were in plain sight, and she came down the alley, and it dawned on me that this lady is not going to stop. And so that's when I reached forward, pulled Eve back. That's my daughter. She was 3 at the time, and I mean, the car was probably within 12, 18 inches.
Yikes.
And I had that sort of, they talk about that Hollywood moment where things slow down, and I didn't really believe in that, but it did actually. I looked up, and the Hollywood moment that I saw was everything sort of slowed down for me, and as the car went whizzing by, I saw the lady was driving with her wrists, and she had a QWERTY keyboard slid open. I still remember this detail, and she's typing away, texting. And it was such a powerful moment, and I'll tell you, Chad, the thing that was the most powerful of this is that she didn't stop afterwards. If she had stopped the car and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I can't believe what happened," that would have, maybe that would have been enough for me to think, okay, there's some hope here. That maybe texting is not so as powerful as I just thought it was. She just kept going. So here's a lady who's probably not a bad lady. She was driving a brand new VW wagon, black. I remember that part. I also remember there was a kid's car seat in the back. So she's a member of our community with a car seat, and which indicates that she also is a mother. Probably not a bad person, but she thinks that she is an amazing multitasker, and like we all do, right? But in this situation, it's obvious that they've studied it, and they say that during a normal texting conversation, you can take eyes off the road for 4.6 seconds of every 6 seconds of texting. So if you think of 4.6 seconds at 50 miles an hour, that's more than a football field. That's more like a football stadium. And if you think of all the things that can happen during that run, what can jump out in front of your car? A little kid, a deer on a desolate highway, other cars coming in, backing out of driveways. I mean, it's really amazing. And so that moment was a powerful, moment for me. And when my heart rate got down below 200, I started researching away. And, I didn't sleep much that fall, but I did a lot of research, and I said, this is how we need to approach this. And I basically started the company to promote safer cell phone and more efficient cell phone use. So, again, the idea of not trying to take the software, not trying to take this phone and put a shackle around it, but giving someone a tool that can make them, it's a win-win. Because if you look at the corporate world, they're having problems with productivity, and they're having problems with, text and drive liability. But if they have Otter, they're not, their employees are not going to be angry about them locking down their hardware. But they're also going to have basically covered their liability on it and given their employees a tool that makes them safer on the highway and more productive in the office. So when we look at it as texting as a holistic thing, as something that's not a fad, that's definitely here to stay. I think we have to look at it comprehensively and say, how are we going to work within, this new growing culture and be safe, but still allow the good parts. And that's what I talked about earlier, was that hypocrisy of we really like what it does for the deaf community with fundraising, with, just home schedule efficiency. But, when it comes time to blast it in the media in terms of text and drive, we vilify texting, but we don't look at ourselves and say, how can we improve our own behavior? So that's what we're trying to do, is offer a tool to this community. And I think it's going to be a game changer.
Good deal. How do you go about, say, if you have a teenager in the car and they're a passenger in the car and they have Otter on their phone? Does it lock their phone down too, or do they still have access to phone calls and texting?
They would have access. Again, here's what we want to do: is promote discussion between parent and teen. If the parent, and I have heard use cases on both sides. Parents saying, if you're in the car at all, I don't want your phone accessible because. And this is interesting. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but when I was talking to a group of kids in Sacramento last year, I showed them some of the other software. I don't need to mention the brand, but I popped open the laptop and said, here's something that when your phone hits a certain speed will lock down your phone. And immediately the hands went up, Chad. I mean, it was all these kids, and some of them weren't even driving yet. They were getting their learner's permits. This 15-year-old girl, I called on her. I said, how are you going to what's your reaction to this? And she said, I know how to get around that. That was her first reaction, which was interesting to me. And then even more interesting was here you had a multi-million-dollar company that put out its best shot at locking down your phone, and she actually did know the way around it. She said, I'll just text with my friend's phone. We do it all the time when our batteries run low. So, I think we're not trying to replace the parent. We're trying to empower the parent. So if the parent knows their kid and says, I really don't want your phone handed to a driver, then no, they can't text while they're a passenger. And Otter will interrupt and disrupt that process. But, if the parent knows their child and says, I understand you're not the driver today, you don't need to have Otter on there. Again, we've put this family and these people, these drivers, into a safer use class right away just because that discussion has occurred. That's how we look at it, is trying to empower, and ultimately we'd like to see that teen putting GPS mode on their phone when they're driving, and when they're not, they can take it off and do it just like any other user. And we've beaten up the teens, Chad, on this issue, but Pew Research and several other research companies have shown that parents are doing it almost as bad, and we need to lead by example on this. So we have a blog that's a Break the Habit campaign blog, and we post all sorts of things, but the theme of the blog is, yes, the teens are the media flashpoint. This is a teen, we post crashes from across the nation that happen every day involving teens, but the idea that we all can learn from, the media focus on this one driving group, because we're all doing it.